Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is another top 10 list that I am bringing to you on the channel today, and it is actually quite an interesting list, this one. We are going to be counting down the top 10 worst managers in the Championship this season, and I would love to get some of your guys' opinions on basically what you think of my top 10 list. Do you agree with it or do you disagree with it? Let me know in the comments down below. So like I said, I think this is quite an interesting list to do, because really this season we've been heaping a lot of praise on a lot of managers this season in the Championship. You know, the likes of David Wagner, Chris Hughton, Rafa Benitez, Gary Monk, Jaap Stan, heaps more. We've just been piling the praise on loads of managers in the Championship this season, but I think it's time that we talked over some of the worst managers this season in the Championship. So what I'd love to do from you guys is basically, who do you think has been the worst manager in the Championship this season? Let me know down below. I'll be very interested to know. And as well as that, what I'd also love to know from you guys is, who has been the worst manager who has managed your club while you have supported them? So for me, being a Preston fan, it's between two for me. It's either Darren Ferguson or Graham Westley, and oh my, Preston have been in some dark times in recent years, let me tell you. I'd probably say, being a Preston fan, the worst manager I've ever seen at my club, as a game manager, it's probably going to be Graham Westley. I mean, we were absolutely diabolical under him, and we could have got relegated to League 2, so we've been in some pretty dark places. But I'm going off on a tangent here, but let me know down below who has been your club's worst ever manager. So guys, without further ado, let's get into the top 10 list. So coming in at number 10, guys, my 10th worst manager for the season is going to go to Philippe Montagnier of Nottingham Forest, and this guy just didn't really have a great ride for Nottingham Forest. He was sacked in January after having a very poor run of results. This guy he came up with so many errors for Nottingham Forest. In certain games I felt like he was a bit tactically inept, and the thing which was really going against him while he was manager of Nottingham Forest was he just couldn't sort out the defence there, because going forward they weren't brilliant, but they weren't like a bad side going forward, Nottingham Forest. And looking over some of the squad players they've got, you know, they're not actually that bad of a team, but he of course left them in a very bad situation. Just of course at this point in time they're still in a mess from earlier in the season. They're just currently above the relegation zone. But the reason I put Montagnier in at number 10 and not a bit further up the list is because going into Nottingham Forest, I think any manager really would struggle a little bit, as of course Fawaz is the owner, and I think it's going to be difficult for anyone basically with having a mad owner like that. But Montagnier is my number 10. And then coming into number 9, guys, my 9th worst manager of this season is going to go to Owen Coyle, of course. Used to be the Blackburn Rovers manager, once again another manager who saw the sack. This time he was actually sacked in February after results really weren't going his way for Blackburn Rovers. Even when he was appointed and came into Blackburn, he wasn't popular with the Blackburn fans, as of course he was an ex-Burnley manager, ex-Bolton manager as well. So it was a bit of a strange appointment when it took place anyway, but he definitely didn't leave them in a good position. He left them in the relegation zone, where they of course currently still are in the table, and he was sacked in February. Definitely not a good manager this year. And then coming into our list, guys, at number 8, it is going to be Alan Stubbs of Rotherham United, and oh my word, where do I start with Alan Stubbs? Basically, this guy has a win ratio of 7.1. That is just absolutely ridiculous. His win ratio is 7.1%. That is just stupid. Out of the 14 games that he was manager of Rotherham for this season, he only managed to get 1 victory. Now, once again, the reason I've not put Alan Stubbs a bit higher on the list is because I do think that coming into Rotherham, really, any manager would have struggled with the resources that you have to work with, and the squad you had to work with wasn't brilliant either. But even saying that, a win ratio of 7.1 is just disgraceful. And then coming into our list at number 7, guys, it is going to be Nigel Pearson of Derby County, and this guy did not last very long in the job as Derby manager, and we've actually seen Derby have 3 managers this season. We've just seen an absolute managerial merry-go-round go around Derby County this season. But Nigel Pearson is the manager coming into the number 7 spot. As manager of Derby County, he only managed to get 3 victories, and he left them in a very bad situation towards the start of the season. I actually couldn't believe how poor Derby were. I think out of their first 6 games or something like that, he only managed to get 1 victory, and out of their like first 5 games or something, they just couldn't seem to score goals. It was really bizarre, and considering the squad that Derby had, you know, a lot of Derby fans were expecting the playoffs this season, maybe even automatic, some of the more optimistic ones, but it was clear from day one that that just wasn't going to be the case under Nigel Pearson, and he came to Derby with big expectations, and he didn't deliver at all.
You are an ostrich.
And then coming into our list at number 6, guys, for my 6th worst manager this season, it is going to be Alex Neal of Norwich City. Once again, another managerial casualty that we've seen this season in the Championship, and I don't think a lot of you will be surprised that Alex Neal is going to make it onto this list, of course. He was relegated with Norwich. He was still, you know, shown faith in the board. He was backed by them to get them back up into the Premier League this year, and did it go for them? It just wasn't working out for him, and honestly, I was really surprised actually with how long Norwich actually were willing to stick it out with Alex Neal, because to me it was pretty evident, you know, in and around like December and January time, that Alex Neal clearly wasn't the right man for this Norwich job, and they could have made that change a lot sooner than they actually did. And who knows, maybe if they did make that change sooner, they could even be in the playoffs at this point in time. But of course, things just haven't gone his way this season. When you look over that Norwich squad, they have definitely underachieved this season, as they are going to miss out on the top 6. So next season, who knows, it could be Norwich's year. This season it's not going to be. Alex Neal is my 6th worst manager of the season. And then coming into my list, guys, at number 5 we do have Gary Coldwell of Wigan Athletic, and it's been a tough one for Wigan this season really. They're of course still 23rd in the league, and when Gary Coldwell was actually sacked at Wigan, they were 23rd in the league, so they've literally made no progress since he left, but he really didn't leave them in a good position. I know when I actually did my Championship predictions video at the start of the season, I got quite a few Wigan fans on that one, being quite optimistic really. I mean, last season in League One, they were absolutely fantastic. Will Grigg was, of course, on fire. We all know what happened to that this season, but they were just banging in goals. They were playing some great football, but they just couldn't translate that into the Championship. And out of his 14 games that he was in charge for this season, he only managed to come out with 2 victories, which is just a really poor return, despite... And it was always going to be a bit of a difficult season for Wigan, but even so, to be winning 2 games out of 14 is a massive underachievement in my opinion. And now guys, this is where the list gets quite interesting. So coming in at our 4th spot for my 4th worst manager of the season, it is going to go to Lee Johnson of Bristol City. And a bit of a spoiler alert actually, but Lee Johnson is actually the only manager on this list who is currently still in the job in the Championship. So that's a bit of a, you know, debate to be had. I'd be interested to know, Bristol City fans, what your current stance on Lee Johnson is, but in my opinion it just has been a really torrid season for Bristol City. I mean, in the summer transfer window he was, you know, backed with it. They brought in quite a few decent signings. You'd have thought they splashed quite a bit of money in January as well, so considering the money that Bristol City have spent, some of the expectations that were placed on their shoulders, you know, at the start of the season they were being talked about for potentially getting into the playoffs this season, but that has definitely not happened. Of course, they're still in the relegation scrap at the bottom of the Championship, and I do think that Lee Johnson has to take a lot of responsibility for that. I mean, if Bristol City this season didn't have Tammy Abraham, I honestly do think that they would have been relegated by now. He's been so crucial to them, but Lee Johnson, I think this season he has been found out a little bit. In games, I think he's been tactically inept as well. He's been out of his depth in certain games as well. We've seen Bristol City just roll over at times this season, and some of the games have been a bit embarrassing. I think that what I find most hysterical really about Lee Johnson is, I was actually going over, when Bristol City were in a really bad run of form a bit earlier on in this season, I went back and watched all of his post-match interviews, and just, oh my god, literally each one was a carbon copy of each other. It was just him speaking in a bit of a monotone voice. He'd come up with 2 or 3 excuses or something like that, and he'd say, well, oh, but we'll be back next week, I promise. And were they? No, they just weren't. Bristol City, it's been a bad season. Lee Johnson's been a bad manager this season. And now guys, into the top 3 list of this top 10 list we have, guys. Coming in at number 3, it is going to go to Paul Trollop of Cardiff City. Now, what I actually find quite funny about this is that at Cardiff he was absolutely abysmal. He was just awful with Cardiff in my opinion, but he's actually been promoted now, as he is now Brighton's number 2. So that is just mental, you know, the season Paul Trollop's had, to go from probably getting relegated with Cardiff to then going ahead and getting promoted with Brighton as their number 2 manager. But I do think that it's quite clear that this guy should be a number 2 manager and not a number 1. He was given his chance at Cardiff this season and it really didn't go to plan with him. At the start of the season, Cardiff were absolutely abysmal abysmal. I mean, I saw them come to Deepdale, I think about 6 or 7 games into the Championship or something like that. Preston didn't start the season off greatly, but we absolutely ripped them apart at Deepdale. I honestly think that if Cardiff stuck with Paul Trollop for the entirety of the season, I honestly do think that Cardiff probably would have been down there with Rotherham this season in terms of an incredibly low amount of points this season. And the reason I put Paul Trollop so high up in this list is because the squad he has at Cardiff is not a bad squad, you know. That's been demonstrated by when Neal walked into the job. He's been able to guide this Cardiff City squad into a comfortable mid-table finish, but it's just been found out really, Paul Trollop is not a manager cut out for the Championship, in my opinion. His win ratio at Cardiff was 16.7%, and I'm sorry, but that's just not good enough. And now, guys, here we go, into the top 2 list we go. Coming in at number 2, and just missing out on the top spot of the video, it is going to be Roberto Di Matteo of Aston Villa. And where do we start with Di Matteo? I mean, this guy is a Champions League winner. A Champions League winner in the Championship, and he'd been back to, oh my god, how much money did Villa spend in the summer transfer window? It was absolutely ludicrous. Everything was looking to be going correctly for Villa, you know. In the summer, they were splashing the cash on loads of big Championship players. They got Di Matteo in, a former Champions League winner. Everything seemed to be going their way. And did it? No, absolutely not. From the start of the season, really, the wheels just absolutely fell off for Aston Villa. Out of the 11 games he was in charge for this season, he only managed to come out with 1 victory. Absolutely awful. And his last game in charge, actually, was against my club, Preston North End. And in that game, it was quite funny, really. All the Aston Villa fans were chanting, "You're getting sacked in the morning." All the Preston fans were singing it as well. And he just found himself to be quite out of his depth, really. I mean, he wasn't given that much of a chance, really. He was only in charge for 11 games, but I think it's clear to see in those 11 games he severely underachieved. With the resources he had at Aston Villa, to be only winning 1 game with them was a pretty poor return. And now, guys, here we go to get to our number 1 in the list. But before we do mention my number 1 in the list, guys, I am going to give some honourable mentions to some of the Championship managers who didn't quite make the list but were in contention too. So first, we had Warren Joyce, who could have made the list. Steve McLaren as well at Derby could have made the list. Kenny Jackett at Rotherham, how long was he there? About 2 days or something like that. He could have made the list. Walter Zenga as well, possibly he could have made the list. Although, I don't actually think Walter Zenga was that bad of a manager. And we did, of course, get this chant out of Walter Zenga.
His name is Walter Zenga, he's bought off of Benfica. Our owners are from China, and we ain't gonna beat ya. His name is Walter Zenga.
So after that chant coming out of his time at Wolves, I couldn't really include him in the list. But coming into our number 1 spot, guys, I mean, come on, it could only be one manager. It is, of course, going to be Gianfranco Zola of Birmingham. And he actually inspired me to make this video, as he did, of course, resigned from Birmingham the other day after the absolute torrid run that he went under with Birmingham. And I mean, Birmingham, you know, looking over their squad in the Championship, it's not a bad squad, and that was demonstrated by Gary Rowett managing to get the best out of these players. When Gary Rowett was sacked at Birmingham, they were 7th in the league. Zola came into that job, you'd think, you know what, yeah, a manager like Zola might be able to bring a bit of flair to Birmingham, get them going forward a bit more. That just didn't happen at all. It's just been atrocious for Birmingham this season. Out of the 24 matches that Zola was in charge for, he managed to come out with 2 victories, and he took a side which looked destined to perhaps finish in the playoffs to a side which could now be going down to League One. With only 3 games left of the Championship season, Birmingham are definitely still in contention for going down come the end of the season, and honestly, it's just absolutely crazy. Of course, Birmingham have recently appointed Harry Redknapp. Let me know what you think of that one down below, Birmingham fans, but by far, in my opinion, the worst manager of the season has to go to Gianfranco Zola. So there you have it, guys. That will wrap it up for this top 10 list of my top 10 worst managers of the season. So I'll be very interested to know as to what you guys had to say about this list. So make sure you do get your comments in the comments down below. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you check out all the other links in the description down below. Make sure you drop me a follow on Twitter. And as well as that, make sure you subscribe for regular Championship content. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
His name is Walter Zenga, he's bought off of Benfica. Our owners are from China, and we ain't gonna beat ya. His name is Walter Zenga, he's bought off of Benfica. Our owners are from China, and we ain't gonna beat ya.